My husband, 35, does not have a car. He sold his old one to help pay for his brother's wedding. I disagreed with this, but he had this car before we got together, so it's not a shared property. Besides that, I have my own car, so that didn't affect me until my husband started complaining about having to commute to work and hang out. He tried to get me to let him drive my car several times, but I stood firm and put a boundary, making him understand that my car would never be driven by him. One of the reasons why is because how bad his driving is. His brother lives out of town. My husband asked if he could drive my car to the wedding, but I refused, not because I was not invited, another story for another day, but because, as I said, my car is off limits. He threw a fit calling me unreasonable to let him take public transportation because he can barely stand it for 10 minutes, let alone hours. I said it wasn't my problem. That irritated him but made him stop arguing. The day that he was supposed to travel out of town, I woke at 10 a.m. and couldn't find my car key. I went outside and couldn't find my car either. I was beyond angry. I called him, and as I expected, he took it and was on his way to the other town. I lost it and told him I gave him no permission to take it for 5 days and said that if he won't turn around with it and come home, I'd call the cops and report it missing. His response was, "You wouldn't dare do it because you know what would happen." I hung up on him, then immediately called the police and told them about my situation. I did not tell them my husband took it because they think it's a family dispute and decide not to get involved. I just reported it missing. 2 hours later, I got a call from my husband saying he was back in town and was being held at our local police station. I went to the station and talked to the cops. My husband made a scene there, swearing over and over that I permitted him to take it and that I was acting out of jealousy and spite because he was going to attend a wedding I wasn't invited to. I took my car and went home, but he had to stay a little longer. He came home in the evening and went into a rage about how I created an awful situation and almost caused him to miss his brother's wedding. He called me vindictive, bitter, and a lunatic to call the police on him and try to accuse him of stealing my car. He had to leave the same day to be able to be there with his family and decided to extend his stay and still hasn't gotten back yet. Right now, his mom and brother are blasting me for what happened and calling me spiteful. Not the idiot, but I feel that there's a lot more going on here. For example, your husband sold his car to help pay for his brother's wedding, even though he needed it to commute. Is your husband prone to making bad decisions? And he paid for his brother's wedding even though you, his wife, were not invited to it? I'm sorry, but what kind of marriage is this? Yeah, he and his brother are very close. I'm on bad terms, also we don't talk, with his brother because he kept accusing me of trying to drive a wedge between him and my husband. He can think whatever he wants, but none of his claims are true. Unfortunately, my husband and his mom think I'm the bad guy here. Lady, you need to file for divorce immediately. This relationship is toxic, and your husband is a massive, idiotic idiot. Why are you still married? I'm honestly asking because there are a lot of red flags here, on both sides. His family hates you. You weren't invited to a family wedding in which you are a part of the family. You don't seem disappointed that you weren't invited to said wedding. He doesn't respect you or your boundaries. You care more about an object than his wants and needs. You had no problem having your husband arrested, and you clearly didn't care about his feelings around a significant family event. You make life decisions without each other. This is not a snapshot of a healthy relationship. Everyone's the idiot here. Y'all seem insufferable and like a textbook dysfunctional couple. I read stories like OPs and think, why? Why subject yourself to this? I know it sounds mean, but my brother-in-law seems to be really discriminatory towards us for being a straight couple. I am bi but have fallen in love with the man I'm going to marry. My brother and his husband were friends with my ex-girlfriend. I'm still friends with her, she's lovely, but we didn't work together. For 5 years now, I've been dating, let's call him Jack. We've decided to marry in a few months and have been planning for a while. The wedding's not big, less than 50 total guests, and we were going to give everyone in the bridal party a +1, but no one else. The thing is, my brother is one of my bridesmen. I have a maid of honor and 3 bridesmen, and my husband-to-be has a best man and mixed gender party. The last weekend I went over to my family to hang out. Cousins played board games, and all the adults had drinks, a typical big family hangout. But my brother-in-law had a bit too much to drink and said some crappy things. And it's not the first time I've heard them, just the first time in maybe half a year. He said I was a traitor to our people for marrying a straight white man. We're white, LMAO. He said I broke up with my ex because I was ashamed of my orientation. He also was comparing my fiance with my ex. Why would you date such an ugly man after such a pretty girl? He's so poor, and you had a rich gay girlfriend. Not true. We're all middle class. Eventually, my brother took him home and my fiance took me home. I told him the next day if he couldn't apologize to us as a couple and stop being so heterophobic, he couldn't come to our wedding. My brother's saying he was just drunk and he'll behave, and our family's backing him up and telling me to let it go. But I have yet to get an apology from brother-in-law. My brother's threatening not to be in the wedding party, and I would hate that. But I would hate including his crappy husband in my wedding more. I told my brother I'd save him a piece of cake if he didn't come. Am I the idiot for insisting brother-in-law cannot come without an apology? To both my husband-to-be and me. Not the idiot. And wow, do people love to judge us for not adhering to what their vision of being a queer should look like, huh? In my opinion, your brother-in-law needs to have a conversation with you and your husband in person, apologize to you both, and promise to be on his best behavior at your wedding for you to allow him to attend. He misbehaved. I think your brother will understand if you explain that his husband was hurtful and rude, and that he must take steps to clear the air if he wants to attend. This isn't about heterophobia. This is about your brother-in-law saying nasty things about your soon-to-be husband and judging your relationship. Drinking too much is not an excuse. This is absolutely the hill you should die on. He's disrespecting you, your fiancé, and your relationship. And someone who thinks that has no place at your wedding. Your brother-in-law sucks for saying those things, and your brother sucks for condoning it. Not the idiot, of course. Stand your ground. So here's the deal. My sister married a black man. We're white. We had some family who was very outspoken about not liking it. She didn't invite them. Why? Because it's her day. And if the people there can't be on her side, why even come? Why even have a situation where they'll say something awful to her new family? He needs to apologize and still doesn't need to be there. I have always had a very close relationship with my brother. He's 3 years older than me and has been a great older brother, mostly, meaning the last years. Our relationship evolved a lot over the years, and we were friends and siblings. He started dating his fiancée 6 years ago. She wanted us to be sisters. A year later, when I got married, she asked me to be my bridesmaid, even though I didn't have any. I said yes because it meant so much to her, and I even bought her an inexpensive but pretty dress since we did a courthouse thing. My brother and she got engaged in 2020. She announced it in the family group chat and that 2 of her friends were her bridesmaids. After the announcement, she started asking me for my opinion and help on stuff, which quickly turned into her asking me to run errands for her and even picking up the cost of certain things. I told her it seemed like something her bridesmaids would be doing with her, and she ignored me. She walked out of a cake store with her samples and never paid, but I was left behind, and they came after me for the money. I spoke to my brother about it. He told me to just go along for their special day. She invited my mom and I dress shopping, then tried to say I was paying for one of her accessories. I had never offered anything like that. My brother told me I didn't have to pay for it, and he talked to her. But then later she was excited and wanted something from me to wear at her wedding. I started saying no to any request for help, and she and my brother got upset. He told me he wanted me to be a part of the wedding. I found that odd since I was never asked to be at the bride or groom's party. Not that I wanted or expected to be, but given what they were saying and expecting, I felt like I was being used. I was open to both of them about this. My future sister-in-law ignored me again. My brother said he loved me, and if I wanted to be in the wedding, I should have said something. I said that wasn't the point, that I wasn't asked, but I was being brought along like I was, only to take on the expense and heavy lifting nobody else seemed to be doing. He told me I was overreacting. Then the invitation came and it was crazy. The venue is 3 states over, in a fancy hotel in an expensive area. The dress requirements on the invite also meant expensive, and to top it all off, every single gift on their registry is a minimum of $250. We can't afford all that. I spoke to my parents, who were also unhappy with how demanding the invite was. So I RSVP'd no. Brother and sister-in-law asked me why. I said it wasn't worth the expense, especially when they had already gotten money out of me, given how I was expected to keep chipping in. The extended family was outraged by this. They said a sibling's wedding is always worth the cost, and I should go and support my only sibling. My brother and sister-in-law were upset by our RSVP too and tried to talk me into coming. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. If it's so important to them to have you be there and help, why aren't you part of the wedding party? And if it's so important for you to be there, why not pay for your stay at least? I won't be surprised if they get lots of no's on the RSVPs. Very disrespectful and entitled of them. They're taking advantage of you under the guise of love. It's a gift grab. People can have whatever wedding they want, so long as they can afford it. Expecting other people to underwrite their lifestyle is entitled. You're setting and enforcing a healthy boundary, and it's good that you're doing it early, because this behavior on their part is likely to continue. You said it yourself. You can't afford it. That's a perfectly valid reason. I can't believe she walked out of a cake tasting without paying and left you the bill. This sounds planned to me. Your future sister-in-law is going to be a nightmare once they get married. I imagine the divorce will be even worse. I was watching my young niece while my sister took her baby to the doctor. We were talking about how her dad's birthday's coming up. My niece said she wanted to make him a cake. I said that was a brilliant idea and gave her my tablet to look up a recipe. She picked one and then started gathering ingredients in my kitchen with my little step stool. When I went to help her crack eggs, she said, "No, I'm making Daddy's cake all by myself." So I stepped back and just supervised for safety. We put the cake in the oven. I told her I would put it in the fridge to cool when it was done, and we would decorate it tomorrow. She was very excited when her mom picked her up, and my sister was excited too when she heard about it. Needless to say, the cake didn't turn out well. Ingredients weren't mixed properly. Proportions were wrong. I baked a new cake with the same recipe and pan. When she came over the next day, I presented the new cake as the one she had made, and she decorated it. Again, she wanted to by herself, but sloppy frosting tastes just as good as neat and is cuter anyway. When sister arrived to pick up her daughter and the cake, she was thrilled. We both told her she was going to be a star baker one day, and my niece was beaming. I was talking on the phone with my sister about the party tomorrow, and she's mentioned how it's incredible her daughter's first attempt at baking turned out perfect. I laughed and told her the truth, knowing my sister would keep the secret from my niece or anyone who could tell her because she's the mom. I figured she would think the story was charming and something to tell my niece when she's an adult, and star baker as a funny childhood anecdote. My sister was livid and asked what I did with the actual cake. I said I fed it to my dog because it wasn't edible. She cussed me out and hung up on me. I can't ask anyone in my social circle which of us is wrong because I don't want it getting back to my niece that she didn't make the special cake. Am I missing something? I wanted my niece to be confident and encourage her sense of independence. Did I cross a line here? Not the idiot, but your sister's a bit of an idiot if she thinks that her young child can make a perfect cake on her first attempt. I think her anger at you is due to her disappointment that she doesn't have a prodigy child. I would just keep my distance until she apologized. For the future, just bear your sister's reasoning ability in mind. Not the idiot for swapping out the cakes. It's a totally harmless thing that will make for a funny story in the future. But I don't know how good it is for the dog to eat a whole cake. But no, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. Oh, it was a chocolate, garlic, onion, macadamia nut, rat poison cake, of course, and with grapes, just like Mom used to make. Honestly, can that aged child even read recipes? How gullible is her mom? Like, how can she be shocked her little kid couldn't bake an edible cake on her first attempt, with no directions or help from an adult. This could have been a secret between you and your sister. She's being overly dramatic. I would appreciate that you let my daughter bake a cake on her own, and when you realized it wasn't edible, you made one that was. You even had her decorated. So now we can all actually enjoy eating the cake, while the face on that little girl will glow. Imagine nobody ate the cake that she made. The little girl would be upset and probably never want to bake again. If I were your sister, I'd be amazed what a fantastic aunt my child has. I'm not, but I still believe that you're awesome. Not just because you had all the ingredients on hand to make not one, but 2 cakes from scratch. We were at my mother-in-law's place for dinner, and while we were talking, mother-in-law took a minute to remind us of her birthday, which will take place next week. My husband looked at me and said, "Oh, no need to get a cake. OP will take care of it." I was taken aback because, for one, I work long hours and will be too busy next week and don't even know if I'll be able to attend. And 2, I never agreed to make the cake, nor did I have the time or money for it, since it's probably expected to be fancy. So I couldn't take it when he basically offered my service without consulting me. I looked back at him and said, "I never agreed to do such a thing. Can you tell me why I should do it? You never do anything for my mom." After that, the table went quiet, and everybody looked at my husband awkwardly. Given his argumentative nature, it was strange seeing him quiet like that. Once we got into the car, he yelled about how I embarrassed him and humiliated him, and how I disrespected his mother at the table. I told him he was the one who offered my service, but he said that I should have agreed or showed I was on board initially, and then told him my honest opinion at home and in private. We got home and he started sulking, saying he couldn't even look his family in the face after the childish crap I pulled at their house. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. He put you on the spot in front of everyone. That's on him that your response was in front of everyone. He counted on you being quiet, not wanting to make a scene. Too bad for him. If you had shown you were on board, you would be expected to do it. If you brought it up later, he'd be asking if you didn't want to do it, why did you say you were on board? You were put in an awkward situation and you spoke up for yourself. That's a great point, actually. I was leaning toward everyone's the idiot verdict because of the wording of OP's response, but yeah, he made himself look like the idiot. What was the alternative here? OP agreeing by default at that moment and then having to take it back later? That would seem even more awful, I think. You are the idiot. Your reply was rude, though, because it implies that you don't give a crap about your mother-in-law and would only do something for her as part of a quid pro quo. The polite response would have been, "Sorry, but I don't have time to make a cake this week, so I won't be able to do that. Please check with me first next time." Well, I'm not mother-in-law's biggest fan for raising such a misogynistic kid, and I'm not sure why her feeling respected should come at the cost of OP being so egregiously disrespected. Sure, she could have snuck in a line about how mother-in-law shouldn't take it personally, and she can always follow up to do that now. But OP defended herself. She reacted in anger to an angering situation, at the moment, effectively. That is an instinct too few people have, especially women who are told to prioritize politeness over self-respect. I think that's important enough to be prioritized, way, way above mother-in-law's hurt feelings. When I, teen male, was 5, my mom, 34, had an affair and left my dad, 35, and me for a wealthier man. For 2 years, I only saw my mom like 4 or 5 times. I can't even remember, but not more than that. Then she disappeared and didn't contact us again. I even thought she was dead. I think my dad thought it was too much responsibility for him, or was angry at my mom and somehow wanted to take everything that reminded him of her away. So he sent me to live with my maternal aunt, and I only saw him like 2 or 3 times a month for half an hour. Unfortunately, my aunt died of cancer last year. I thought my dad would take me in, but he's busy with his new family, wife and kids. My grandma, Dad's mother, wanted to take me, but then my egg donor came out of the blue to take me. When she came to take me, it was the first time I saw her in 9 years, and it felt weird. And it sucked that she hugged and kissed me as if nothing had happened in those 9 years. She married the man she left us for, and they now have 3 kids. I've been living with them for 6 months now. I spend most of my time in my room, since we're in another city 6 hours away, and I have no friends here. We rarely speak, but she tries to talk to me. Still, I ignore her and her husband. They try to include me in activities, but it sucks seeing them play the perfect family when I missed everything as a child, so I don't really like them. Her husband tried to make me call him Dad, and he tries to spend time with me and talk to me. He knows I love tennis, so he learned about it and has listed me in tennis classes and wants to talk about it all the time he sees me. He even wants to take me to some matches. He introduces me as his son, and I hate it, since all I see is the guy that stole my mom from me when I needed her the most. It happened yesterday. He asked me to go with him to the grocery store, and he met a friend of his, and as his friend hadn't seen me in any family photos, he asked about me, and then my mom's husband said, "He's my firstborn, you didn't know about him because he was living with the sister of my wife's." I didn't make a scene, but when we got out, I told him to never say he's my father. He's just a homewrecker who stole my mom. We got home and he told my mom. Then my mom, almost crying, said, "You hate us that much, don't you?" So I said, "Of course. You left me. And now you want to act as if nothing happened by playing the happy family. To be honest, I can't wait to turn 18 and leave. And I'm not sure if I ever want to see you again." She started crying and her husband comforted her. So I just went to my room. They tried to talk to me, but I've just ignored them. I told a friend of mine about this and he said I'm the idiot. Not the idiot at all. This is so messed up. If they really want to make amends and have a relationship with you, they should first apologize and admit that your mom completely abandoned you. She can't just come in 9 years later and expect everything to go back to normal. And the guy calling you his son is insane. You don't know him. Jesus, Dad is worse. At least Mom left him in the care of another parent. Dad flung him to an aunt, and unlike Mom, wouldn't even take him back. I really think his dad would have let him go to foster care if Mom hadn't taken him. His parents should just be called crap and crappier at this point. It makes me wonder if the affair was earlier and if the other man is OP's biological dad. His stepdad called him my firstborn. I wonder too if stepdad is actually bio-dad. What OP needs from his mom and her husband is the complete truth about why she and her ex abandoned their son, because I expect Mom knows why the dad did it, and it's impossible to build a life or a relationship on lies. So OP needs to know the whole story first. I just want to add in here, OP, that I too hope you find peace when you move out. It's going to take hard work, and I recommend finding a good therapist. Your formative years were terrible because of your parents. Having someone who is truly in your corner and can help navigate your feelings and relationships is an absolute gift, and there's no shame in therapy. Also, if you can start saving money now and thinking about college and employment, don't tell your parents. Have a secret account. Start planning your move now. I wish you all the best. So my 21 female, brother 26, got married last weekend. He and my new sister-in-law, 26, had known each other for a few years, and naturally, I was invited to the wedding. She had been vegan since she was 12 and converted my brother in recent years, so they decided to make their wedding vegan. That meant that all this catering was vegan food, even alcohol, and they used petals from their garden instead of plastic confetti to make the wedding as eco-friendly as possible. I have no problem with any of this and think it's great. Anyway, the problem is this. The issue I often have with eating anywhere is that I have multiple allergies: peanuts, soy, sesame, and a mild shellfish allergy. The first 3 I named are very serious and have landed me in the hospital in the past because of cross-contamination. So I'm weary. So I asked my brother if there would be anything safe for me to eat at the event. But because they're using a local neighborhood ladies' business as the catering service instead of something professional, I didn't feel comfortable enough that there was zero chance of me reacting, mainly because the allergies were ingredients in many dishes. It felt too risky, so I said I'd bring my own food, and he agreed that was the best option. I've done this with plenty of such events in the past, and it's never been a problem. The wedding day arrives and it comes time to eat. Everyone is digging into the food, and I pull out my Tupperware quite happily and dig in when I see the bride staring at me with horror on her face. I had brought a homemade sort of salad box with 2 eggs on top, and she just stared at me in disgust the entire time we ate without saying anything. After the meal was finished, she pulled me to the side. She said I ruined her meal and her appetite and ruined her day, and that I'm clearly a selfish person because I can't even go 1 meal without animal secretions at a vegan wedding, and that it was seriously disrespectful because the fact it was a vegan wedding was the main focus. In my eyes, I bought the food because they couldn't provide me with something safe to eat, and it's not like I brought a steak. I had 2 eggs and a big salad, and she must have been specifically staring at my food even to realize they were there. However, I'm beginning to wonder if I'm the idiot because my brother also said it was in poor taste and I should have brought something else. So what are your thoughts? Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. While I understand having dietary restrictions and it being her day, you have unavoidable dietary restrictions in that you're severely allergic to some foods, some of which were listed in the ingredients. You talked it out and got permission to bring your food. You did your due diligence. From there, it's your brother's responsibility to tell his new wife what's going on. Honestly, I think her brother's the idiot for not ensuring she had a safe meal. She's family, not a random +1, and I think it's on the people having the wedding to ensure dietary requirements are catered to. Since he and his wife failed to be hospitable to OP by providing food she can eat without dying or becoming severely ill, he gets no say in what she eats. Sorry, the focus of her wedding was veganism? Not that she was committing to the person she loves? She's an idiot for that comment alone. Would she have rather you eat the food they provided and then have to call an ambulance? If OP had eaten the catered food and had to be taken away in an ambulance, the bridezilla would have still pitched a hissy fit because OP was stealing her thunder or some ridiculousness. OP, the bridezilla was looking to make an issue. No matter what you did, she would have had a problem. I-19, non-binary, recently started working at a home decor store as an online order shopper, grab items that have been ordered through our website, and help with curbside. I've only been working there for about 2 months now. At my job, I have my name tag as my preferred name, and people call me my preferred name. It's not mandatory, but we also have the option to put our pronouns. I go by they, them. A few weeks ago, my ex got hired at our store, but luckily we don't work in the same department, so we don't run into each other as much. We're not on bad terms, and neither are we on friendly terms. Recently, several of my coworkers have begun calling my dead name despite me never telling them. I corrected them, but I was suspicious of how they got my dead name. Eventually, a few days ago, my ex and I ran into one another at work, and he called me by my dead name. I corrected him and told him to call me by my preferred name, to which he stated, "I knew you before as dead name. I'm still going to call you that now." The final straw was when his department manager, whom I hadn't talked to once, noticed my name tag that same day and said, "Oh, you have the wrong name on your name tag. I'll change it for you to dead name." I informed my manager about the issue and was informed that all the information would be confidential. The next day, upon entering work, I was informed by one of my ex's work friends that he got fired. The friend was upset, saying that I was so messed up and got him fired over a name, and that he's at risk of being homeless because he got fired. I feel awful, but I don't consider myself at fault here. Am I the idiot? LOL, not the idiot. If he literally wants to walk into work with an "I'm a legal liability for my employer" sign on his back, that's his choice. Literally, all you did was talk to a manager when they asked you about your name, and that was enough for the dots to be connected. He shouldn't have bullied you if he didn't want to get fired. It would have cost him nothing to call you by the name you wanted to be called by, let alone not drag all your other coworkers into his campaign to make you miserable. He's also demonstrated he can't be trusted to deal with customers who don't fit traditional gender roles respectfully and might just disregard any rules of common courtesy he doesn't feel like following. So why should the company wait for him to cause an incident that will create an even bigger PR nightmare for them? Agree. For everyone to start thinking the dead name is OP's real name in a matter of weeks, despite the fact they have known and worked with OP for twice as long, means that the ex went on an aggressive campaign of misinformation. Even their manager thought OP's tag had the wrong name. Not possible for that to be accidental. I sincerely hope this situation quickly gets forgotten at your job and people do not dead name you again. My best friend got married last weekend at a destination wedding. I was a maid of honor, and our friend group was bridesmaids. I originally planned on having my kids stay with my in-laws because I didn't want to exhaust them by bringing them to a destination wedding. But a few weeks before the wedding, my friend insisted on me bringing the kids for the ceremony because she wanted them to be ring bearers. I told her that I couldn't just bring the kids to the ceremony because I'd have to pay for a babysitter for the reception, and I couldn't afford that. I had to pay for a destination wedding, a destination bachelorette party, all my expenses on hair and makeup, and the maid of honor dress, plus the wedding gift. She was begging me and started crying about how much she loves my kids and wants them as ring bearers, and she'll find a solution regarding a babysitter. I trusted her on that. I didn't want to let her down because her wedding had already been canceled 4 times in 2 years, and I didn't want to add to her stress anymore. So we leave for the wedding, and last minute I find out that the bride had forgotten to hire the babysitter, despite her reassuring me we don't have to worry about it multiple times. That resulted in my husband skipping the reception and returning to the hotel with the kids. After the meal, everyone enjoyed themselves with their partners, while I was all alone because my husband was away. My best friend told me to cheer up, and it wasn't a big deal. But it was hard, as I felt like I was third-wheeling everyone. All my friends were with their partners. It wasn't their responsibility to keep company to me because of the bride's negligence about the babysitter. After we returned, the bridesmaids told me how sorry they felt and how I was right to feel upset. They also said they're mad about how the bride has guilted all of us regarding the amount we'd spend overall, despite knowing our financial situation, and how they feel like she partly guilt-tripped us because her wedding has been canceled before. This week I met for coffee with my best friend, and she asked my honest opinion about everything and not sugarcoat it. So I told her. I was mad how she promised to handle one thing for me, and she failed me. And the bridesmaids had made sure to do everything to her liking, despite our hardships. I told her I didn't want to complain about her during the wedding planning in order not to stress her out. But I told her since all of this was over, I felt like she was wrong trying to guilt trip us as if it was our fault her wedding got canceled before. She then started crying and said she's a worthless and horrible friend, and that I implied she's a bad person. The rest of the bridesmaids found out, and now I'll believe I'm TA for telling the bride my honest feelings. And I should just suck it up and let it go despite being right. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. So the bride wanted everything her way, regardless of the costs or other burdens it might cause you and the other wedding party members, and didn't stop manipulating people after the wedding. I think the only reason she asked for OP's honest opinion was to be able to turn people against OP and make them forget how she treated them all. Also, she didn't get defensive. She went right to, "Oh, I'm a bad person." She knew the answer before she asked. She was hoping you would lie to her to make her feel better. Sounds like an emotional manipulation tactic to me. She may not be so great of a person. Destination weddings already ask a huge burden on everyone involved. But as someone not in the US, this thing about bridesmaids paying for their hair and makeup continues to astound me. You gave so much for her special day, and she couldn't even keep her babysitting promise. Why are you friends with someone so manipulative and willing to use you? My boyfriend and I are both 18. I was going to see my brother to discuss some family stuff. My boyfriend was with me, so he came along. My brother and sister-in-law just had triplets, and they also have a toddler, so 4 babies in the house. They need all the help they can get. I went to talk to my brother, and my sister-in-law just handed one of the babies over to my boyfriend and told him to keep walking with her in his arms until she fell asleep. My boyfriend did that, but when we returned home, he kept complaining that my sister-in-law didn't ask him to do it She assumed it and just put him in a position where he couldn't refuse. Edit. He could always refuse, but he considered it rude, so he didn't refuse. I told him, whatever, don't come again then. And he accused me of dismissing his feelings and concerns. I told him that if you unexpectedly visit a family with 4 babies, you can't expect hospitality, and you're going to have to help entertain a baby. That's life. He said I'm being dismissive about it. I told him to stop moaning and stop being a child. He accused me of being an idiot. You are the idiot. Your boyfriend is right on this one. Not expecting hospitality is one thing, but being expected to care for someone else's newborn without your consent is not okay. His presence alone is not consent. Yeah, I feel he's not relating the circumstances correctly, because I'd never hand a newborn to an 18-year-old man and assume he's okay with it. Strange for the mother to just instantly trust he was comfortable with that. Not the idiot. She just gave birth to 3 babies and has a toddler to take care of. At this point, she'd probably hand the baby to her Uber delivery driver if it would get them to stay asleep. I was so sleep deprived after we had our twins that I would have handed them to anyone who would hold them so I could pee in peace. Poor mom probably would have handed him too if he had more arms. OP just needed to say thank you so much for helping when you didn't have to, and I'm sorry you're uncomfortable. Then don't go over there anymore because there'll probably be a baby thrust upon you. LOL. Disagree. You are the idiot, OP. Just because of this. If you unexpectedly visit a family with 4 babies, you can't expect hospitality, and you're going to have to help entertain a baby. It is an expectation in your family. Doesn't mean it applies to all families. Handing a baby to someone unexpectedly, without asking, is invasive and rude. No one is obligated to tend to another's children, casual drop-in or visit or not. Full stop. No. If you visit someone who just had a baby, you either bring dinner, go ready to clean, or help with the baby. You don't go to someone's house who just had a baby and expect to be entertained. They're exhausted. Entirely sleep deprived. So even if mom shouldn't have just shoved a baby into his arms, she literally can't even think straight.